Hey everyone, today we're talking about comparing rational numbers. Well, what is a rational number? A rational number is any number that can be written as a fraction, positive or negative. So we're going to start dealing with positive and negative fractions and decimals all mixed together. Vic number one, when comparing positive and negative fractions and decimals, use a number line. That's going to help you tremendously. So our first example is to write these numbers in order from least to greatest. Don't forget to change all fractions to decimals. Remember, we're going to use a number line. We're going to transfer all these to decimals only so that it's easier to compare. And we've got some positives, some negatives, we've got some fractions, some decimals. So here we go. So our first number is negative 1/4. 1/4 should be one of those fractions that you automatically know what its decimal equivalent is. 1/4 is equivalent to 0.25, but it's negative. So we're going to put, I'm going to write here, negative 0.25 on our number line. I've got 1.1, oh wait, that's not a fraction, 1.1 and a half. Again, a half should be one of those easy fractions that you know its decimal equivalent is 1.5 or 0.5 for that. And then we've got 7/8, negative 7/8. That one's not as easy, so let's do that one. Let's convert that to a decimal. We've got 7 divided by 8. I cannot, so 8 cannot go into 7, so I have to put a 0 above the 7, add a decimal, bring it up, and add a 0. 8 goes into 70, 9 times, no, 8, it's got to be 8. I was going to say 9, but 9's too much. It's got to be 8. 64, so I subtract, and I'm left with 6. Add another 0 and bring it down. 8 goes into 60 7 times. 7 times 8 is 54. Nope, 56. Whew, starting to get confused. And then if I subtract, I've got 4 left over, and I'm going to bring another 4 down to make 40. 8 goes into 40 exactly 5 times. So this negative 7/8 is going to actually be negative 0.875. All right, so I've got a lot of numbers here that I'm dealing with. Like I said, some are positive and some are negative. When you're doing problems like this, pay very close attention to where the negatives are and what you're dealing with, because it's very easy to overlook the negative sign because you've got so much going on. You've got some decimals, you've got some fractions, and you've got some negative signs. So really, on these problems, you're going to have to pay close attention. Let's put these in on our number line. As you can tell, I drew my own number line, and my smallest number is -1. The reason my smallest number is -1 is because none of my fractions or decimals exceed or are less than -1. And then I go all the way up to 2 because none of these numbers are greater than 2. So there's no reason for me to expand my number line beyond these numbers because all the numbers that I'm dealing with here are right in this area. So don't make a huge number line when you're only dealing with these numbers, this range of numbers. So let's go ahead and let's put our smallest number on our number line, which is actually going to be this last one I just did. It's negative 0.875. It's going to be over here in this negative range, and it's almost equivalent to -1/2. It's almost there. And we know that the smaller the number that we're dealing with means it's closer to the left side of our number line. So I'm going to rewrite this number as a fraction, really, really, really close to this -1. So I'm going to write negative 7/8, if you can see that. So that one's done. I'm going to look for another negative number so that I can compare it. This is a negative, and then this one's a negative. So let's compare these two numbers. If I look at the tens place, this one's bigger, so I'm going to put this on my number line at approximately 0.25, which maybe if this is half, let me use a different color. If this is about halfway between 0 and -1, then this would be half of a half, or 1/4, a quarter of the way. So about right here is my negative 0.25. Then, so that's done. Then I'd put my last negative down. Oops, what did I do wrong here? Can anyone tell? I did not rewrite it as its original value. -1/4 is what I should have put, because that's how it was originally written in the problem. Then I've got my -0.12. That's a number that's almost 0. It's really, really close. It's less than 1/4. So I'm going to put it about right here. And so we're estimating about where these numbers will fall on the number line. And as we do that, you'll see that my numbers are falling into place from smallest to largest. Done with that one. Now I've got all positive numbers. I've got 0.6. So again, just kind of look at your number line and say, and think rationally. So we're dealing with irrational numbers. So you've got that. That's really close to a half, but it's more than a half. So if I write maybe a halfway mark between 0 and 1, my number 0.6 is going to be a little bit past that. So I've got 0.6. That one's done. Then I've got 1.1 or 1.5. Well, 1.1 is definitely next to go, and it's a little bit past 1 whole. So I've got to go right about here. And then 1.5 or 1 and a halfway between 1 and 2 would be about right here. Whew. And now you'll see that I have my numbers listed in order from smallest to largest. I wrote the numbers in their original form, so if it was a fraction up here, then I wrote it as a fraction down here. You guys can see how this is really complicated, right? It can get very confusing, so take your time and work these problems slowly. Okay, so let's put these in order from least to greatest. Let's use some estimation like we did in our last problem. So let's first deal with our negatives. -1/2, -0.45, and -1/10. -1/2, again, should be one of those fractions, or one of those fractions that we already know what its decimal equivalent is. And then we've got that and that. Now, -1/10, that tells you already, that fraction tells you already what decimal you should be writing down. It's -1/10. And then 4 divided by 5, 4/5. 4 divided by 5 is, let's see, 5 cannot go into 4. So I have to put a 0 above the 4. 5 goes into 48 times. So 4/5 is equivalent to 8/10. So this is going to be 1 8/10. And now we're ready to put all these on our number line. I'm just going to go through and I'm going to mark maybe the halfway points between each integer. So I've got, this will be somewhat close to -1/2 or -0.5. This will be +0.5. This will be about 1.5, 1.5. So I've made little halfway points to help me out along the way. I'm going to go ahead and mark on my number line all of these numbers. I'm going to write them in their original form. Now I can go from what I think is the smallest to largest, or I can just write them, and based on the number line, they'll fall into place, smallest to largest. So let's start with this one right here, -1/2, which is right here. halfway between 0 and -1, -1/2. 1.9, so I have to go past 1, and it's almost at 2, but not exactly. 1.9. That one's done. 0, that's easy. 0. -0.45. -0.45 is almost -0.5, but it's not. It's actually going to fall to the right because it's still negative, but it's closer to 0 than -1/2 is. So it's going to go about right here, -0.45, right here. Tricky, huh? And then about 1.8, well, that's going to fall just shy of 1.9. Remember, you're going to write it in its fraction form. And then -1/10. -1/10 is very, very, very close to 0. But it's going to be on the left side of 0 because it's negative. It's going to be about 1 right here, -1/10. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to rewrite these numbers because yes, they're on my number line. Yes, they're in order, but I'm going to rewrite them because it's really hard to read. It's not easy to read this, so I'm just going to rewrite it so it's clear. -1/2 is the smallest, then -0.45, then -1/10, then 0, then 1 4/5, then 1/9. That's the answer to this problem. It's a lot, okay? Let's try this one. We've got 4 numbers. We've got 4 1/5. Sorry, -4 1/5, -4.209. We've got +4/9, +1/50. If you look at my number line, I have to span from -5 all the way up to +2. Okay? Let's figure out what -4 1/5 is as a decimal. I have the feeling it's going to be very close to this number. So I know it's going to start with 4 as my whole number, but I want to know what 1/5 is as a decimal. So that's 1 divided by 5. I have to put a 0 up here because 5 will not go into 1. Add a decimal, bring it up, and add a 0. 5 goes into 10 twice exactly. So my decimal equivalent to 4 1/5 is 4.2. If I wrote, what did I forget? My negative sign. If I rewrote this number underneath -4.209, you'll notice, you have to add some zeros as your placeholder, but you'll notice that this number is actually closer to 0. It would be, if this is -4.5, about halfway between -4 and -4.5 is -4.25. So -4.209 is going to come really close to that. But then -4.2 is even closer. Like, I could zoom in on this, and I'll do that in a second. I'll zoom in on this and I'll show you guys like what I mean. So this one is the smallest, I'll write it down here, -4.209. Then -4.2. Actually, it wasn't 0.2, it was -4 1/5. Remember, rewrite them as their original. Whew. Then I need to compare these two. These two are easier to compare. I'm actually not going to convert them to decimals. I know that kind of goes against what I'm saying, but I'm going to use some estimation to help me. 1 1/50. 1/50 is a very, very small fraction because I've chopped whatever I have into 50 little pieces and I only have one of them. So that's very, very, very close to 1. 1 1/50. 4/9. 4/9 is really close to 1/2. So I've chopped whatever I'm using into 9 pieces, and I'm taking 4 of those pieces. So 4 out of 9 is really close to 1/2. I know that because exactly half of 9 is 4.5, 4.5, and I'm taking 4. So this is really close to 1/2. So 1.5 will be about here, 1 4/9. So this is smaller than this, so my next number is 1 1/50 and 1 4/9. Okay? Like I said, I'm going to zoom in on this area, and let's really take a look at these two numbers. Let's see where I got some room. Got a little bit of room in this board back here. Actually, let me do this board. So I had, if this is the numbers -4, and this is the number -5, I'm comparing the decimals -4.209 with -4.2. Okay, so like I did earlier, I tried to cut this number into a half piece, which is -4.5, and then I cut that half into half again. So remember how when we are working on the negative side of the number line, it's kind of like working backwards, because even though 5, the absolute value of 5, is bigger than the absolute value of 4, because we're dealing with negatives, it's like flipped around. So 4 is to my right and 5 is to my left. So -4.209 is closer here to -4.25 than the other value. Hopefully that makes sense to you. We'll talk about this concept more in class. Why don't you guys get a few practice problems in. This is order from least to greatest. So order from least to greatest. Sorry you can't see that too well. But there you go. Try these problems. Let me know if you have any concerns tomorrow in class. We'll talk more about this stuff. I know it's hard.